Northwest Capital Management, in collaboration with Carson Partners, has developed an IPS specifically tailored for governmental defined contribution retirement plans. Although the IPS is a critical tool for managing plan investments and fulfilling fiduciary responsibilities, it's often not well understood. Many people may not be familiar with what an IPS is or how it functions in practice. In this session, we'll cover what an IPS is, why it matters, and provide a walkthrough of the key components of the document. This will help you feel confident in adopting and managing your plan's IPS effectively. Let's start by defining what an IPS is. Simply put, the IPS is a document that guides a committee's investment decisions by creating a framework for the selection and monitoring of the investments offered in the plan. An IPS helps committees meet their fiduciary responsibilities when managing plan investments. It serves as both a guide and a safeguard, ensuring that decisions are made thoughtfully and consistently. Before adopting an IPS, it's essential to understand the key considerations for maintaining it effectively. First, the IPS must be periodically reviewed by the committee. Regular reviews help to ensure that the IPS stays relevant and effective as the plan evolves over time. This review process should be documented in the meeting notes, creating a clear record of when and why the document was reviewed. This is especially important for fiduciary purposes, as it shows the committee is actively managing and overseeing the plan's investment strategy. The IPS provides guidelines, but it does not override the plan document or any relevant laws. If there's a conflict between the IPS and the regulations, the legal provisions will always take priority. And that's why it's important to regularly review the IPS to keep it up to date to ensure that there aren't any conflicts. The IPS should provide a flexible framework that allows for changes in the investment environment, market conditions, or evolving plan needs. It's important that the IPS avoids being too specific or rigid in its criteria. Overly restrictive guidelines can limit the committee's ability to adapt as circumstances change. Additionally, the IPS should avoid including factors that are likely to change frequently, like listing specific investment options. The IPS should also clearly define roles and responsibilities of both the committee and any service providers involved in the investment selection and monitoring process. This helps to clarify the decision-making process and ensures that everyone understands their duties and obligations. Having well-defined roles reduces the risk of confusion or overlap. And remember, once the IPS is adopted, it must be followed. That's why it's crucial to review it regularly to ensure that it remains flexible and clearly defines roles and responsibilities of both the committee and service providers. These considerations are all critical for ensuring that the IPS serves its purpose effectively. At this point, you may be wondering why a formal IPS is necessary or whether it's a legal requirement. The answer is simple. While not mandated by the law, an IPS is widely regarded as a best practice, and more importantly, it's a valuable tool. It serves as both a practical guide for managing plan investments and a safeguard for the committee by ensuring decisions are made through a consistent, well-documented process. So while adopting an IPS is not legally required, it is a fiduciary best practice. The Department of Labor, or DOL, supports the establishment of an IPS as part of a plan's fiduciary oversight process, and NAGDA, which is the National Association of Governmental Defined Contribution Administrators, recommends maintaining and following an IPS, describing it as, quote, the single most important document to help manage your fiduciary duty when making investment decisions. Now that we've covered the fundamentals of what an IPS is and why it's important, let's shift our focus to the actual IPS document that has been created for your plan. Walking through this document will help you better understand its key components and see how it aligns with the best practices and considerations we've discussed. As we mentioned earlier, the primary purpose of an IPS is to outline the plan's investment objectives and set a clear process for selecting, monitoring, and when necessary, replacing investment options. Let's take a closer look at some of the key sections of the IPS to see how these objectives are put into practice. First, let's review the investment objectives outlined in the IPS, which help guide how the plan selects the investment options to participants. First, we want to offer investment options that align with various risk tolerances and management styles, ensuring that participants can find choices that suit their personal preferences and financial goals. We also aim to offer a broad range of asset classes that vary in risk and potential reward. This allows participants to build a diversified portfolio. Of course, managing costs of the investment options selected is another key objective. The IPS specifies that the plan must offer at least 3 investment options with varying risk and return profiles and provide enough information for participants to make informed decisions about the available options. And finally, simplifying the decision-making process is crucial. Through participant education, notices, and a default investment option for those who don't actively choose, The goal is to make it easier for participants to understand their options and to make informed choices. By defining these objectives, we're ensuring that the plan is structured to prioritize participants' best interests and that the committee fulfills its fiduciary duties. Ultimately, clear and thoughtful investment objectives create a more effective plan. As we move forward, you might be wondering, how do we actually go about making these investment decisions for the plan? The IPS helps by outlining the roles and responsibilities of the committee and the investment advisor. Let's take a look at both. For the investment advisor's responsibility, first and foremost, the investment advisor will help maintain and keep the IPS up to date with assistance from the plan. We'll recommend investment options for the plan and monitor their performance. We'll meet with the fund companies, review the information gathered, and share key insights with you. We'll also produce regular reports on the performance and monitoring of investments for the committee to review. And we can also help with strategies for participant education on investments and offer guidance on relevant communications when needed. For the committee, you will also play a key role in maintaining the IPS, as we mentioned earlier. The IPS should be periodically reviewed by the committee and updated when necessary to ensure that the plan is adhering to the investment objectives. The committee has the responsibility to regularly assess that the criteria that was used to select the investment advisor is still valid and suitable for the plan's needs, and the committee is responsible for reviewing, benchmarking, and looking at the plan's services and fees to ensure that they remain competitive. The committee is responsible for reviewing the reports received from the investment advisor and monitoring the investment advisor's performance. And finally, the committee is responsible for accepting or rejecting recommendations from the investment advisor regarding the selection, monitoring, or replacement of the investments. Now that we've outlined some of the general investment objectives and clarified roles, let's dive into the process of selecting investments offered by the plan. Asset class selection involves ensuring a diverse range of asset types such as stocks, bonds, cash equivalents, and possibly other asset categories depending on the plan. After deciding which asset classes to include, the plan must evaluate the individual funds to confirm that they meet minimum eligibility criteria and that they're managed by a legitimate and regulated financial institution. The qualitative review is a deeper evaluation of each investment option that goes beyond just numbers and performance metrics to assess the fund's overall management approach and strategy. The quantitative review involves evaluating the numbers to determine if the investment option delivers consistent, risk-adjusted returns relative to its peers and benchmarks. This review uses data-driven analysis to ensure that the fund is performing well. Put together, this process ensures participants have access to a well-managed fund lineup that helps them build a diversified portfolio. Now that we've covered investment objectives, roles, and the process for selecting investments, the final component we'll focus on is monitoring and replacing investments. After the investments are selected, they must be regularly monitored to ensure that they still align with the plan's goals. The IPS lays out a framework for how to monitor the investments and how to respond when something isn't working. The watch list allows us to monitor underperforming funds or funds that experience major changes, like a change at portfolio manager. If a fund consistently underperforms or no longer aligns with the plan's goals, Northwest Capital Management may recommend that the committee approve its removal. Once again, we've kept the IPS framework here broad to maintain flexibility, but in practice, we take a detailed and structured approach to fund monitoring. In our quarterly investment performance reports, we provide specific criteria and methodologies for how funds are assessed. This includes setting thresholds for various performance metrics like return, risk, and expense ratios to determine if a fund is meeting expectations or if an action should be taken. Additionally, when a fund is recommended for replacement, we provide additional reporting on our investment analysis. This includes the criteria we used to evaluate potential replacement candidates, the rationale behind any fund replacement recommendations, and any other relevant information about the fund review. This aligns with the IPS requirement to ensure that we keep the committee informed by providing regular, detailed updates on the performance and monitoring of the investments within the plan. The goal is to ensure the committee has all the information it needs to make well-informed decisions about the plan's investments. In summary, the investment policy statement is a crucial tool for managing a retirement plan. It offers a structured yet flexible framework for investment selection, monitoring, and replacement, ensuring that decisions prioritize the best interest of your participants. Through our ongoing collaboration with the committee, we ensure investments align with the plan's goals while providing transparency and support for informed decision-making. Regular reviews, well-defined roles, and detailed performance reports contribute to a solid foundation for achieving optimal outcomes for your participants. Thank you for your attention. If you have any further questions about the IPS, please feel free to reach out to your advisor, and we look forward to continuing our work together to maintain a strong and effective plan.